Welcome back, viewers. Today, our video's agenda is IELTS Writing Module, Academic Writing Task 1, and this video is particularly for process diagrams. So previously we had 3 set of videos for Academic Writing Task 1, but that was for charts, tables, and graphs, and this one is particularly for process diagrams. And like the previous set of videos, we are also going to have 3 videos for process diagrams. This is the part 1 video of the 3 videos that we will be having, and this one talks about the planning process basically. So I'm your tutor, Tahmid Alamgir from Lekhapora Online. Hope you guys find this video helpful. So I'll just go over the writing module overview. So the IELTS writing test is designed to assess a wide range of writing skill, and it tests how well a person can basically observe a particular graphic and write or describe the graphic in his own words using a wide range of vocabulary and grammatical skills. And the timing of the IELTS exam for writing test in total is 60 minutes, and you are going to be having 2 tasks, Task 1 and Task 2. So we advise that you should spend about 20 minutes for Task 1 and 40 minutes for Task 2. There are 2 main reasons. Firstly, because the writing content of Task 2 is larger than Task 1, and secondly, because Task 2 contains double the marks compared to Task 1. So that's why we advise you to spend 40 minutes for Task 2 and 20 minutes for Task 1, and you should allocate your time accordingly. So coming to the word limit of Task 1 is that you have to write at least 150 words. And for Task 2, you have to write at least 250 words. So for both the questions, you can obviously write more, but it's not always wise because you're not going to get extra marks for writing more. So if you can summarize everything, and if you can finish your writing within 160 words for Task 1 or within 260 words for Task 2, that's absolutely fine. And your paper is going to be marked by a certified IELTS examiner, and you're going to get marks in either whole bands or half bands. So for example, you're never going to see marks like 6.4, 6.7. You're always going to see marks whole figures such as 6, 7, or 0.5, such as 6.5, 7.5, and so on. So now let's talk about what exactly is a process diagram. So a process diagram in IELTS is not as common as charts, graphs, or tables, but you should still prepare for it because you never know, you may be the unlucky one. And process diagrams usually shows many processes for a particular activity, or it may show 2 snapshots of the past and the present of a particular region that has gone through some changes. And you will be asked to describe the steps in the process, or you will have to describe the changes in a particular place. So a couple of key points that I would recommend you have in your mind is that first, as I have already mentioned, spend 20 minutes for Task 1. And I would say to divide the whole 20 minutes in 3 steps. So we recommend that you should plan, then write, and finally revise. So this is because you may think that 20 minutes is already a short time. So I don't have time to spend on planning or revising. But you guys have to understand that planning and revising is as important as actually writing it, because when you have a proper plan, your writing will be very easy. And when you're going to revise, you're going to be able to eliminate the silly mistakes or certain things that you have missed out while you were writing. So, for example, without planning, if you start writing something, 20 minutes may not be enough. But if you plan for about 4 to 5 minutes, you'll see that you can finish the writing within 12 minutes. And you're going to have extra time to revise, and that's going to help you make sure that you haven't made any silly mistakes or haven't missed out any points. And as I've already mentioned, you will have to write at least 150 words. You can obviously write more. And a couple of tips is that you have to make sure that you understand all parts of the graph, or the process diagram and you address all important features. And you have to write only what you see. You can't bring in any opinion, or you can't write anything from outside of the graph. Whatever you see, you're going to have to write about that. And to receive a good score, here are a couple of pointers. You can go through it, or I'll read it for you guys. So you have to address all parts of the task, accurately summarize the information, make meaningful comparisons, end with a brief overview of the information, use correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation. This is, after all, an English exam, so obviously grammar, punctuation, spelling, all these will be tested. Write incomplete sentences and sensible sentences, and use your own words. So you have to eliminate copying directly from, for example, the instruction or the question itself. You have to use your own words or paraphrase the instructions as much as possible. So, moving on to the planning process, which is our main agenda of this video. So the planning process can be divided into 3 steps. The first one is you have to address the task. The second one is you have to determine the topic. And the third one is you have to make notes or take notes of the details. So let's start with the first one, addressing the task. So when you see a diagram, determine whether it shows the steps in a process or changes in a place. This will help you address the task. So as I have already mentioned, there are going to be 2 types of process diagrams. So the first one is where many steps of a particular activity will be given. As you can see here, cotton production. So as you can see, the steps are given of the whole cotton production process. 1, 2, 3. So here all the steps are given. And another type of process diagram is where it shows changes in a particular place or region, and it's going to give you 2 snapshots of the past and the present. Here is a similar example. It's a particular neighborhood where the before snapshot is given, and then changes go through, and then you have the after snapshot. So now I'll be talking about the first lesson, which is addressing the task. So as soon as you see the graph, you have to understand what the graph is showing. So typically the process diagram can be of 2 types. One is where the diagram is going to show you many steps of a particular activity, and the another one is where the graph is going to show you 2 snapshots of a particular place or a region, a before snapshot and a present snapshot, and they're going to show you 2 snapshots about a particular place which has gone through some changes. So here you can see, for the first example, cotton cloth production. So here they have given you the whole process broken down into several steps. And on the second picture, you can see a particular neighborhood with 2 pictures showing you the same region which has gone through some changes with a before snapshot and an after snapshot. So determining the topic sentence is very important, and this is going to help you to determine the topic sentence. So now, once you have addressed the task and once you have understood what the graph is about, the second task is to determine the topic, or the topic sentence basically. So in task 1, you will be asked to summarize the information on the graphic by selecting and reporting on the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So you will be given the process diagram, and they would ask you to summarize and describe the graph or the process diagram in your own words, obviously, and make comparisons where it's relevant. So you can find the topic by reading the title of the diagram and the description of the diagram in the task. So in order to know the topic of the graph, you have to read the instructions on top of the graph, and that's going to give you the topic of the graph. And you have to note down both the title and the description of the graph. So let's show you a couple of examples. So here we have a particular graph which says raisin production. So in order to determine the topic, you have to read the title and you have to read the instruction. So what is the title? So the title is raisin production. And the description is basically the process of producing raisin from grapes. So once you have the title and the description, you have determined the topic of the process diagram. So let me go over how you should do it exactly. So the title again is the title of the graph, and the description is actually written in the instruction where it says the diagram below shows the process of producing raisins from graphs. So here you have two key informations which are necessary for you to understand what the diagram is about. Let's look at another example. So here, read the instruction. The diagram below shows a library before and after renovations. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So the second sentence will always be the same. And here you have the title, which is Task-1 Public Library. So from this information, we can find the title, which is Task-1 Public Library, and the description, which is a library before and after renovation. So you see the previous example was about the different steps of a particular process, and this example is about the before and after of a particular place. Let's look at another example. So here, as you can see, remember the cotton cloth diagram that I showed you? So here, let's break it down. So the title, as we already know, is the cotton cloth production. And the description is basically the process of producing cloth and clothes from cotton. So these two information alone gives you a whole image of what the process diagram is about. So if you ask yourself what the process diagram is about, this diagram is about the production process of cotton cloth from cotton. So once that's done, we move on to the third part, which is making notes about the details. So for a diagram that shows steps in a process, you will have to determine what happens at each step of the process in order to be able to explain those steps. So for a diagram that shows how a place changes, you will have to determine the differences between the before and the after pictures. So making notes will be different in the sense that, for example, for the graph or for the process diagram where they have given you steps of a particular process, for example, the raisin production ones, there you will basically have to note down details for each step in order to be able to explain those steps. But in the case where you have the before and after shots of a particular place, the changes, you have to basically compare how it has changed from the past picture. And most diagrams will have labels to help you identify objects and actions. A diagram may also have arrows to show the direction of the movement of the process. So similarly, for example, here, most diagrams will have labels. As you can see here, there are labels under each steps. So these will tell you what particular steps are about. Despite the pictures being self-explanatory, they have also given you titles to the individual pictures, which is going to help you understand what each step is talking about. And those are going to help you note down the details. So let's take a look at this example. So the raisin production one. So we already know what the diagram is about. We have identified the title and we have identified the description of the diagram. So now we need to jot down the details for each step. So if you closely look at this picture, it shows a grape hanging off the hand and it shows grape harvest. So the first picture talks about the harvesting of the grapes. Then it shows drying for 2-3 weeks. So now this is just the planning process, so you don't have to write down every detail. You can just write the first picture shows the harvesting, the second picture shows the drying or raisins being dried. The third picture here shows a bus and a factory and it's written transportation. So we know that the grapes are being transported to a particular place where it's going to be processed. So that's what I wrote, transporting to processing plant. Then The fourth picture shows cleaning. So the grapes are being cleaned. Then it shows washing or washer. So you can write the grapes are being washed. It's just keywords, simple keywords that tells you what the image is showing. Then in the eighth picture, we have sorting. Oh, sorry, it's the sixth picture. So in the sixth picture, we have sorting. So they are sorting the graphs, and sorting usually means that you're rejecting the bad grapes or the rotten ones, and you're only taking the good ones. And then it shows packaging for sale. So as you can see here, it shows a couple of boxes with written commercial, bakers, exporters, grocery stores. So this means it's ready for sale. It's packaged for sale, and here they have given you an arrow. Here the product is ready. The raisins are ready. Previously it was in grapes, but now they have processed it and they have shown you the process, and now it's ready for sale and package. So this gives you the whole process, process breakdown. In the processes are already broken down into pictures, but now you know each process details basically. So let's look at a different example where you have changes to a particular page. So remember the Taskville Public Library. So here the details are going to be jotted down in a different way. So here we are going to have details for the before snapshot, and we are going to have details for the after snapshot, noting down what changes have occurred. So in the before snapshot, we can see that the desk is in the middle, but here it's not in the middle. So jotting down the details, one thing that I must say in this case may be a bit tricky. And for that, what you have to see is, even when you're taking details for the before snapshot, you have to take a look at both of the snapshots. You take a look at the before snapshot, you take a look at the after snapshot, and then you try to find the changes or the differences between them. And that's how you're going to note down the details. So if you look at the desk, you see here the desk was in the middle, here the desk is not in the middle. So that's what you write, because you can talk about it, because there is a difference. So that's a detail that you can talk about. So you write that in the before snapshot, the desk is in the middle. Then you can look at the reference area. So here the reference area is behind the desk. So even though the pictures are in 2D, you can obviously imagine yourself entering here, and then you can say that it's behind. You have to talk in the context of a 3D place, not just a 2D diagram. The diagram is 2D, but you have to speak, or you have to write in the perspective of a 3D floor basically. So as you enter from the front door, you see the desk, and so the reference area is basically behind the desk. But here, let's look for the reference area, and the reference area is here. It's not behind the desk anymore. And the desk is already not in the middle, so you can also talk about the reference area. So you write the reference area is behind the table. And then let's look at the children's room. So the children's room is on the right. But here, the children's room is on the corner. So you can also talk about that. So you write the children's room is on the corner in the before picture. Then you can look at the adult fiction. So here the adult fiction is in the same place, and here the adult fiction is also in the same place. So till now you have talked about the differences. Obviously you can also talk about the similarities, things that hasn't changed. You don't particularly only have to talk about what has changed from the before picture and the after picture. You can also talk about what has remained the same, because that is also a very important detail, because obviously not everything in a place is going to change. Some things are going to remain the same, and you obviously also have to mention those. So you can say the adult fiction is on the left here, and the adult non-fiction is behind the adult fiction. So now when it comes to the after, you basically directly contrast these or match with these. So desk was in the middle here, but the desk is closer to the door. The new reading area. So here is a new reading area. In the before picture there was no reading area, but here we have a reading area. then you can say that old children's area is divided with magazines and reference area. So previously the children's area was huge, but now the children's area, as you can see, the whole section is divided into magazines and the reference room. So you can also say that the children area is divided. And what are the new additions? It's the magazines and the reference area. Then you can say the new children's area. So previously the children's area was here, but now the children's area is on the corner. Then you can say that a garden has been added. In the previous scenario, there was no garden, but here we have a new addition, which is the garden, which is across the reading area. Then you can look at the adult fiction and the non-fiction are in the same place. So a lot of things has changed, but not everything. So you can say that the adult fiction and the non-fiction are in the same place. So that's how basically you can break down a process diagram regarding changes, and it's not very complicated, even though it may seem a lot of details, but you basically have to see both of the pictures and see what has changed, and you mention those, that how is it like in the before picture and how is it now here in the after picture. And if there are areas that hasn't changed, you also mention those, that those hasn't changed, just like the adult non-fiction and the adult fiction. So lesson 2, looking at another example, which is the cotton cloth production. So previously we have seen the library one and the raisin one, but now we're going to take a look at the cotton cloth production. So similar to the raisin production diagram, we have steps here. So the first one is written harvester. So we know that the cotton is being harvested. The second one shows that the cotton is put in, the seeds are out, and the bales are basically processed. So cotton obviously cannot be used in the harvested form, it has to be processed. So we know that the cotton is being processed to make bales. In the third one, the bales are processed to make blowers. Blowers is basically a grinded form of cotton, and bales is basically a cluttered form of basically cotton being cluttered together to form a easily carried piece basically. And later it's again processed to make bales, which is grinded cotton. And then that is basically sent to the carding machine, which processes the blower basically. The blower that we get from the third one is basically, see, if you look at the picture here, how the blower looks is shown. And then the blower here is shown to be entering a machine. So we know that that's how each of the steps are interrelated. You know that after this we have this, and obviously it's also labeled 3, 4, 5, but we can understand without every label that okay, blowers here, blowers were labeled, but here it's not labeled, but a similar image is used in order to describe the blower. So we know that the blower is put into a machine, and the machine is named carding machine. So we can say the carding machine is processing the blower. You obviously don't need to know prior to giving an exam the cotton cloth production. It's just you have to be able to understand the diagram and explain it, not like you have to have a PhD in cotton cloth production. So then we have the fifth picture, which is spinning machine making yarns. So here it says spinning machine, and here you can see the end product, which is the yarn. So we know that the spinning machines basically spin the process blowers, and then it's turned into yarns, and then in the sixth picture the yarns are basically sent into another machine for looming. So here we have looming, and then the looms are basically dyed in a dye vat. That's another process of dyeing the looms, and then those are basically turned into the cloth, and the cloth is basically turned into clothes. So that's how you can break down a process diagram. So we're almost to the end of our class, and a couple of takeaway points is Again, you should spend 20 minutes for task 1, and you should do your planning. It's very important, and once you have done the planning, the writing part will be very easy. You have to identify the process diagram type. What exactly is it showing? Is it showing you the steps of a particular process, or is it showing you changes to a particular place? And you have to identify the details of the process. You have to jot down the details. For both type of graphs, you have to jot down the details. If it is a process diagram relating to steps of a particular process, you have to jot down the details for each step. And if it is a process diagram regarding changes to a particular place, then you have to jot down details in terms of the before picture and the after picture. And once you have identified the details, you can go on writing the task, and that would be explained in the part 2 video. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and our videos are particularly a bit longer because we tend to cover everything, and we tend to make sure that students don't need to go somewhere else to basically acquire some other knowledges. So hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like, subscribe, and share this video, and subscribe to our channel for more similar content. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.